On this episode of AV Week, the ups and downs of the world market and the impact that has on AV, marketing your company, and how to fire a customer. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
AV Week is brought to you by our fine group of underwriters, companies like Draper. This is AV Week, episode 210, recorded Thursday, August 27th, 2015. Time-sucking Vortex.
Ready.
AV Week.
Performing. Scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AV Week. AV Week. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tom Albright. I am your host. With us is my buddy, my pal, the guy I aspire to be, Mr. Tom Andry from AV Rant. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Absolutely. Tom is his podcast is called AV Rant, and he will answer all of your not home automation, but home theater questions. You do it every Monday or every Tuesday?
We switch to Mondays. We do Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We record live, but you send your questions in beforehand to one of our many email addresses, and we put you in the queue, and we answer every single question. So, and they all get answered. Usually on the podcast, if you're extra long or your questions are very, very specific, we will answer you directly and then deal with it more generally on the podcast. But every question gets answered on the podcast.
Very cool. All right. And also with us is Keren Lipshitz. Keren is from Kramer Electronics in Israel. How are you, Keren?
Hey, everyone. I'm well. Thank you.
Good. And just for the heck of it, let's play the whole time change game. I'm in Central, Tom's in Florida, so he's in Eastern. This is roughly 9 a.m. my time. So what time is it there, Keren?
5 o'clock p.m.
5 o'clock. She is staying over just for us, Tom.
I feel honored.
I do too. God love her. All right, let's kick this thing off. Couple of different things we're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk about how to get your stuff into some significant installations. Talk about how to get rid of really troublesome clients. It's a great blog that I wish I would have written honestly, because I've got some difficult clients, not blogs. And also talk about some new Phillips things. But first and foremost, holy crap, the stock market, which is not something we typically talk about here, has had a difficult time this week, and I'm not just talking about the U.S. stock market. From China all the way through to London and New York, the stocks have taken up and down. The Dow Jones had its biggest loss, I believe, in history this week, not percentage-wise, but point-wise. Tuesday, it was actually up 200 points, and by the end of the day was down. I think it was like a 900-point swing between noon and when the time market closed. Tom, we're going to hit you with this first and take it to Keren. What does this type of activity on the stock market do to folks like Harman, to folks like publicly traded AV companies? Does it make them nervous, or should it make us nervous as guys and gals who purchase this stuff?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind was when I saw that China was having such a hard time. A lot of our electronics come from China. That's why we're able to keep these costs down, is because we are able to source it out to China. And that's really great for our markets. We're able to sell these things at a price point that people are expecting. If all of a sudden, China's economy collapses or something happens where they have to raise prices, they end up raising prices quite a bit. What's going to happen when you're going into the store? Right now, you can get like a 65-inch Vizio. What is it? This E series, or the E series, for like $895. I mean, that's a ridiculously cheap price. So if I'm in the manufacturing end, the first thing I'm thinking is, what's going to happen down the road for us? As far as the public's concerned, I mean, personally, I'm 40 years old, 43 years old. I am not thinking of market swings. Like they said, oh, the Dow dropped 1,000 points on Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was. I'm like, it was down to 15 something. I'm like, Dow was all the way up at 15? Because in my head, like, 10 years ago, or whatever it was, I was like, if the Dow stays above 10,000, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
So I was feeling like things were going well. But I can understand people who are closer to retirement where they start freaking out quite a bit, and that's really understandable. But the stock market is the long game. It's not the short game. What you're worried about really is whether or not these swings are going to affect manufacturing costs, and for those manufacturers, how that's going to affect how they're going to be able to price their products in the future.
Well, and you mentioned China, and that was kind of where this all started. China devalued its own currency a week ago now, and knocked it down by 2%, which is kind of what started this whole thing. And some people were saying that it was to help the manufacturing sector in China because their currency is cheaper. It's cheaper to export it and more expensive to import it and all this other jazz. Is there any validity to that? You think that's what they're thinking, is to get more product, more of their stuff out the door?
Well, absolutely. That's what they want to do. They want to make sure that they're if they can keep their prices internally low, well then that makes their exports that much more attractive. What really seems to be happening to me right there is that communist government is trying to straddle the line between having just enough capitalism to keep the people in line, but not so much that they get thrown out of power. And that's frankly, it really seems to me, and I'm not an expert, I'm not an economist, it really seems to me that they are just not. This is something that's completely new, and it's something that they really don't know how to do very well. I mean, we've been doing capitalism for a long time, and the housing market snuck up on us. I mean, how did that sneak up on us? I mean, how did we not know that was coming? There were certainly people who knew. Yes. Which they just either were being ignored or they didn't speak loud enough or whatever. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future.
No, it isn't, and it's kind of an interesting experiment, right? Us in America say, our democracy is a great experiment. That right there, the communist, the Chinese form of government right now is an interesting experiment, because you're right, it's not a pure communist state. They've got enough capitalism to make it interesting. So, yeah. Keren, from your perspective, and not just Israel and not just Kramer, because Kramer is a privately held company by Dr. Kramer, and when it comes to the world economy and what you guys see as your products are in different places, has this made any impact in some of your guys' forecasting or some of your customers? What are you hearing back from the different segments throughout the world?
I think that as manufacturers in general, we are used to ups and downs. And China is not the first country who we used to use as a manufacturer. Think about it. In the past, it used to be Japan, then it became too expensive, it went to Korea, and again it became too expensive, it went to Taiwan, and now we are manufacturing in China. So I think that if we manage correctly, and we understand that sometimes things become more expensive or less expensive, we will be able to manage it and survive it in general as a manufacturer. The problem is that China is a huge country and a communist one. And I totally agree with Tom that I think it's cost them not that ready for what happened. And the labor cost, which used to be really, really cheap, it's more expensive now. They are getting used to buy things, enjoy from their money. There is a lot of money in China going out. They are seeking to invest outside of China. The world is changing. And we will have to adapt to it. So we will have to be patient and see what's happening. And if we manage ourselves correctly, I think we will be able to pass it. We already see now that the markets in Europe started to raise. So I think we will have to wait and see.
So let me ask you this, and this may be an unfair question, and you can tell me it is. When it comes to this, then, because it almost feels like that, as you use China as a manufacturer, is that almost like the stock market where the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs are going to happen, right? Tom mentioned the fact that the stock market, especially in the U.S., is a long game. Is this just going to kind of work itself out? And yeah, you might pay a little bit more because of the currency exchange currently, but in the long run, it's going to be fine. Your guys' components aren't going to skyrocket, and then never come down. It's just going to kind of work itself out.
I think we will have to adjust. The margins that we are used to will not be the same. It's same in China, by the way. They were used to higher margins that they have now. When the labor costs raised, they cannot raise the price, of course, because we are already used to low prices, and they have to deal with it. We will have to deal with it as well, and our distributors and integrators will have to deal with it. The whole market will have to adjust. I think that we will have no other choice but to adjust. But people buy more. If you think about it, if a small office used to buy very cheap equipment, now people are used to more and more electronics, so they buy more. Your margin is smaller, but in the total, if you sell more, I think in the total we will be okay. If we will manage it correctly, we will be okay. The problem, of course, will be for the small businesses. They don't have a deep pockets, and they will suffer more.
The small businesses in China, or the small businesses that do business with China?
No, outside of China, okay. Of course, outside of China, everyone are manufacturing in China. As a large business with deep pockets, you can survive it. As a small business where your margins are anyway very small, they will suffer much more than that.
All right. I'm kind of also wondering if it has to do with this emerging middle class in China. I'm not an economist either, just like Tom, but this is one of those things. Infocom a year ago released a report that said that the Asian markets in general, China, India, that whole region, is going to surpass the U.S. market by the end of 2016. But by a small margin, but still, it's going to be a bigger AV market. And I'm wondering if some of that, what Keren mentioned, the fact that their workers are kind of demanding more. You've got this emerging middle class who are purchasing more. They're doing more. Those offices and those manufacturing plants are actually using products and putting those in. It's not just 20, 30, 40 years ago, when Nixon famously went over to China for the first time. It's not the hillside farmer anymore. You've got this large manufacturing sector, and you've got this large middle class that are working in these factories, and they are demanding kind of a more revenue, more income, and they're doing things with that income, like buying electronics. So it'll kind of be interesting to follow along. All right, let's talk about Phillips and lights. One of the things that's been kind of happening is this whole Internet of Things. I would put this in there, Tom. You can disagree with me if you want on that, whether or not the Phillips lights and these programmable lights, right? Let's kind of that's what I would call them. My day job, I work for a company called Innovad. We're programmers, so I run a great group of folks who are programmers. That's why I would call this a programmable or a configurable lighting system. They've had a couple out that were kitschy little change the color thing, This new one though, and this is from Engadget. This one is different. This one is an actual honest to goodness. You can do stuff with this. You don't have to run a whole bunch of wiring. It is an Internet of Things type thing. It's $40 to start, so that right there, the price point is great to me at least. Where are we going with stuff like this? And is this something that folks who do both Resi integration and Resi automation, and folks like me who live primarily in the pro or the commercial world need to worry about? Or is this something that maybe we should kind of embrace?
This is a really interesting area for me because I am really super lazy. So I see this stuff, I'm like, that looks really fun. I am totally not going to spend the time to try to figure that out.
But you don't have to run anything.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, right? It's getting to the point now where I can no longer use that excuse. Like, I'm so late. They're like, all you literally have to do is screw in the light bulb. You telling me you can't screw in the light bulb? But we've got quite a few people that listen to the podcast. We were talking about this last week on the podcast, about how it's getting to the point where, there's all these different little ways of whole home automation that is becoming so accessible that it's really easy for you to do some of the really super basic things. We were talking about those Nests and the thermostat you control over the internet, and now we've got more stuff that's coming that you can control over at least your Wi-Fi. But pretty soon it's going to be to the point where you're going to sign into a website and be able to control everything in your house. Now, there's the dangers, of course, the whole Big Brother, or somebody hacks your house and it turns into a rave. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But the problem that I've always seen is that nobody wants to have to go to 5 different apps on their phone to control each little thing in their house. Like, okay, I got to go to the blender app. I'm going to turn the blender on. Oh, look, at the oven's still on at home. I have to go to this other app and turn it off. Oh, I'd like to change my thermostat before I get home, or turn it down, turn it up because I'm not there. Here's this other app I have to go to. What we want, what people really want, is a single interface, and that single interface is where your custom installers come in. That's right now the selling point that I see. I can give you a single interface. You go here and it will control everything you want it to control. Whereas your residential person doesn't have that sort of access unless they want to get into some programming, which some do. I know guys that do it. But right now that's the barrier. That's the thing that's separating you guys from the home installer, not the home installer, but the home resident who wants to do some of the stuff themselves. I love this. I think it's a great idea. I'd like to put it in specific rooms. I think it would be great. That being said, it is not a whole home solution as of yet. It's just one other way to control one thing. Once this, Harmony is really getting to the point where it interfaces with everything, but you still have to be in the house. You still have to be on Wi-Fi for their little hub thing to work. You cannot go from from the internet, at work and go and control all your stuff in your house yet. They'll probably figure out some way to do it, but they haven't done it yet. And that's where I would be concerned as a custom installer. I'd be concerned that somebody like Harmony is just going to decide to really take everything over, and they can do it if they want to.
Yeah, and they've got the market share. I mean, they've got the mind share, because I still remember the first Harmony remote I ever saw was, good Lord, 15 years ago now, where it was, programmable. You plugged it in USB, you told it which devices you had in your home theater, and it downloaded the IR drivers, and away you go. I'm kind of surprised, though, you mentioned that. I'm kind of surprised they haven't figured out how to make an app that lets you, drill in through the internet.
Well, Nest is the same way. Nest, you can when you're in the house, you can control it directly from the app. But what's really happening when you're off of your Wi-Fi is you press the button and it sends the signal to Nest. Nest comes up with a way to determine that you are actually the person that's supposed to be controlling this, and then it sends a signal back to your house. So you have to give it access and everything like that. So that's the barrier. There's no way to just IP it directly. At least not that I'm aware of. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it works.
No, it is. I mean, I've got the only IoT thing I think I have. Let me make sure about this. Is a Nest, and you're right. It's a login and password. You say you're right. I want to get home from the office. It takes me half an hour. I want to cool down the house or what have you. So, Keren, from Kramer's standpoint, what do you guys think about this whole Internet of Things area of technology and of AV when it comes to not just the home but also commercial? Because let's be honest, over the last 5 or 10 years, a lot of residential stuff, a lot of things that are built for the home have made their way into corporate. The Apple TV is the thing that comes to mind most readily, but other things have as well. Are you guys watching the Internet of Things, and what's your guys' position on it?
First of all, I want to say that I totally agree with Tom. If you can't beat them, join them. And I'm kind of happy that there are all kinds of components of do-it-yourself, because the human nature is that when we have something, we want the next thing, the bigger one, the stronger one, and the better one. So what those components are doing, they are creating a demand which was not accessible to the common people. It was accessible to people who has, a big home, a lot of money and everything. It's not a general population. And those things are actually creating a demand which was not there 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. It wasn't there. So it's actually opening a door for us for the mass market. It's becoming cheaper, and our added value is actually to add the overall programming and control application. People would not like anymore to have to press a button, even if it's on your iPhone, to press a button that close this light and that light, and then the shades, and then the door, and then the alarm, and turn off the air conditioning. They would like scenarios. So I'm entering home, and I want a scenario, which means air conditioning is on, and the lights are on, and the music is on, and when I'm going to sleep, I want a scenario of going to sleep, and when I'm opening the TV and I want to watch it, I want a scenario of watching TV. And this is something that most people can't do by themselves. So this is where we step in. And our control application can connect to any of those components. We have drivers for almost every component in the market, including the Phillips Hue, which, by the way, we were using as part of our demo in ISE 2015. So we are using them, we are integrating them, and it's a nice things to have. And I think for us, I see it as an advantage and not disadvantage. It's not a competition. It's something that opens the door even for us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, from our buddies over at AVinteractive.com, ClickShare helps the Amsterdam RAI, Keren mentioned ISE 2015, to truly connect people. The RAI is, and I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm just going to say the RAI because I say the RAI and I screw it up. The RAI is where ISE is held, has been for the last few years. The story really isn't about ClickShare. Good for ClickShare, good for Barco. You know, they've got all that. Keren, we're going to start with you on this. As a manufacturer, how do you get stuff like that, right? How do you get your products into large installations like that help you guys brand, help you guys market, but also helps out the client and the institution, you know, come up with a solution that they're trying to solve, trying to solve a problem?
So we are working in two ways. There is the B2B business, meaning that we are familiar with the integrators and installers and consultants which are working with this specific customer. If it's a bank, if it's the army, if it's or a government or the RAI, for example, we are contacting him, trying to understand what is the demand and trying to find the best solution for him. So if we are building the solution based on, of course, our components, it's easier for him to integrate it. And it's an added value. The other option is, of course, to go directly to the customer and explain why our products will have an added value, same as probably Barco we're doing with ClickShare. They introduce it and convince the RAI that presenting will be easier using their product. So if we are contacting directly the customer, we are creating the demand from the market, and the customer is coming to its integrator and saying, we want to buy Kramer. So there are two options to do it. We usually are trying to understand what is the best option. If our customer is not an educated one, we will prefer to go to this distributor, of course.
Tom, it's a little different question because you're not a manufacturer, but there are some, how do I put this without getting myself in trouble? There are manufacturers that I know that are working with high-profile clients that they're high profile enough that they basically tell the manufacturer, yes, we want your stuff. No, you can't say anything. So this could be the CIA. This could be the NSA. It could be the KGB, for crying out loud. I'm not saying it's any of those. Matter of fact, I'm saying it's not any of those. I'm just giving those as examples. I'm getting myself on a freaking government list sometime. But how do you do that then? I mean, if you're doing the due diligence, you're doing what Keren said, which is, you're working with the client and you're, helping them out and helping them solve a problem. But in the end, you don't really get the marketing oomph out of it. What's kind of the best solution there?
Well, that's because the whole point of doing this is to get your name out there and to be able to put on your list, hey, I worked with so and so, they've used our stuff. At that point, from the standpoint of the consumer, if I haven't heard of you, all it takes is somebody to make a product that looks similar to yours, so that if I've seen that product, like say I go to CES, and at every at every table there's some sort of hand scanner thing, and they had that years ago where you put your card in it or something like that, and that's how you entered. That's how they knew where you had gone and entered you into contests and all that. So if they made that be non-branded and they didn't announce that they had used that, if I went to a store and saw that and said, oh, I used that at CES, that seemed to work really well, I think I'll use that for my event. Well, all it takes is somebody else to make a product that looks similar to basically steal your customers, in essence. So it's from my standpoint as a consumer, it doesn't do me any good not to know your name. So I'm wondering from the manufacturer standpoint, if you're going to end up helping out this company and doing all this work, yes, you get the sales, initially or whatever money you're getting up front, but what are you going to lose in the long run? So it's got to be like a real decision on the manufacturer's part or the seller's part. Hey, if we're going to get a lot of exposure but no fame or credit from it, is it really going to be worth doing this? Would our money be better spent elsewhere, or would we be better off just being an advertiser or have a booth at that event? Personally, with this ClickShare specific product, first thing that came to my mind is, they're basically helping, putting their product at every single booth is what it sounded like to me, so that you could try it out, there. And you then again run in danger if Kramer goes and is the main sponsor and is doing all this stuff and their name's all over it, and then something technologically goes wrong, you're like, there's that entire audience is going, oh yeah, well, it was kind of cool, but that one time it wasn't, is the thing that's going to stick into their mind. So you have to make sure that everything goes 100% as well.
Well, and that's a good point. The other point is, let's take Christie, because Christie has a similar solution. Kramer has a similar solution. A number of manufacturers have a similar one. If you're that manufacturer, you go to that show, how do you feel when it's almost like your competition, and not that you're being forced to use it, but it's right there, So, all right, this is my favorite article probably of the year so far, and it's written by a guy by the name of Stuart Bryant from Commercial Integrator. You're fired. When to call it quits with clients. Technically part one, so ostensibly Mr. Bryan will write a second part. But here's what we got. In the article, he says, quote unquote, as my partner and I have been growing our business over the last 11 years, there have been times, especially in the beginning, we would take on clients who would turn into time-sucking vortexes of frustration. God, I love this guy's wording. They would bring stress into the office, whether in the service department, sales department, or accounting department. Whatever it was a chronic problem. I think I said this off the air as the three of us were kind of getting together. I've been planning on writing this very article myself, and I'm glad he did it, because he can piss off his customers, and I don't have to. But here's the thing: there are customers like this, right? There are customers. I'm not sitting here saying that I am the world's best business person and I am the world's best customer service person. There are times that I have absolutely screwed up, and people have every right to call me on the carpet when I do. Absolutely. But there are these time-sucking vortexes of frustration. Tom, we'll start with you on this one. The best question I'm going to ask, and I'll ask it to Keren too, how do you fire clients? How do you fire people giving you money?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I've been in this situation a number of times before, in the past, and even I'll Audioholics, the website that I wrote for years and still write for every once in a while, they, there have been clients where you just, I don't deal with them directly because I'm just a writer, but I hear the stories, and at that point you're like, listen, what is the money? How much is the money, and is it really worth it? Not only is it a time suck and a frustration, but really it ends up being a dollar. It's almost calculation. I'm spending this much time just thinking about this person. I don't spend that much time thinking about my wife or my kids. Is this really worth it? And at that point you have to, decide that, hey, we're kind of done at this point. You and I are either set, or just don't renew your contract, or change that dollar amount to say, okay, if I'm going to spend this much time on you, this is how much it's really costing me to have your business. Therefore, I'm raising your price, and if you don't like it, well, then you're going to have to find somebody else to annoy. And I think that's the best way to fire them, is just actually give them the dollar amount is worth it to you, because those incessant midnight 1 a.m. phone calls and emails absolutely can kill you, not just emotionally and for yourself, but for the rest of your clients. And if you're coming to work exhausted and stressed out because of this one client, you're not going to be giving the service to the rest of these other paying clients that you should. So there's a cost associated there as well.
That's a great point. Is let's quantify exactly how much they're costing you, right? And say, okay, here's the dollar amount. Here's this is what me working with you is worth. And Tom is right. If it's not worth that to them, then they'll find somebody else to suck the time out of. Keren, from your standpoint, and you've got a little different scenario, but you still have clients. I'm certain that you have time-sucking vortexes, because your clients are a lot of similar to my clients, because we both work with integrators. How do you tell someone, thanks but no thanks?
I think for us it's a very good problem, because you never know which tenders or larger customers those integrators will have in the future. So when you calculate it today, it's never the calculation. It doesn't have to be the one that will be in the future. Maybe in the future it will be worth working with this distributor. So I'm not in favor of closing doors. But again, yes, you need to do this calculation of the time you are spending for each customer, and limit service. You can charge, you can calculate your discounts. So I think you are doing a balance, but still I don't think that we are in a place that we can fire distributors or integrators or consultants, unfortunately, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we have Joe now. Joe Whitaker from Joe Whitaker Designs. How are you, sir?
Doing well.
Good. So let's talk about, by the way, congratulations. Joe was one of the new 40 under 40s for Commercial Integrator, where this article came from. How do you fire clients? How do you tell them, we no longer want to work together?
Well, when we do it a lot like businesses who are our clients do that. Everybody looks at the bottom line in the commercial market. So when a client comes to the point where they're either frustrating enough to my guys that it actually takes away from the job, or that the time expense starts actually taking over, you just have to sit down and have that business meeting with them. And on the commercial side, it's a lot different from the residential side as far as, what people call firing the client. They have respect for that type of conversation, because they have fired plenty of people. A lot of these big businesses use, they use cleaning crews, they use night maintenance crews, and when those night maintenance crews for some reason are too expensive, well, they have to have the conversation with that vendor that we're going to have to let you go. Us as integrators have to look at it the exact same way. We have to look at our bottom line, our profit model, how our employees are actually doing within a job, and we have to evaluate whether that job is good for our company. So the easiest way to do it is simply schedule a meeting and hash it out and say, your job is just not a fit for our company. We actually have in the last year done this a couple of times. And in most cases, one we kept in particular, and one we did let go, fired a client, I guess you could call it. And I actually referred them to another integration company. I said, there's somebody else who might be a better fit for you. And that kind of keeps it a little better, because they may get another company or decide to have one of their own people do it themselves, and then they all of a sudden establish a value to you. Because, I mean, we're integrators. We're a value-based service at the end of the day. So we have to be able to show what we're worth to be able to actually attract them in, and vice versa.
That's a very good point. I like that, because, you know, and kind of all three of you said the same thing. I like what Joe said there. Refer them to somebody else. You know, don't just, you know, cut them loose and put them out, you know, in the street cold. Say, you know what? Here's cards of 3 or 4 other folks that you might want to work with, and then you call those people and warn them that you gave them somebody's card. So, from innovateonthenet.net, scientists create flexible LEDs that can be woven into fabric. So, yeah, it's a little weird and it's a little off base a little bit, but really it's more about LEDs and kind of digital signage and stuff. Keren, we'll start with you from a manufacturing standpoint and your manufacturer's standpoint. You need to get video. You need to get some sort of thing into this. LEDs are becoming more and more prevalent in everything from, you know, wearable technology to literally you can put a sweater on and it can be, you know, wearable technology. How do you integrate and how do you watch things like this and things like, you know, OLEDs and as this technology kind of evolves, you know, where do you guys step in and say, okay, now it's ready for us to concern ourselves with. Now it's ready for us to make a product that integrates with this.
Well, if you ask me as a woman, I would say it's a great idea because I can use the same dress but have each time different color.
That's a very good point.
What came to my mind when I read this article is, wow, that's great. I won't have to you know, choose the shoes that are fit to the color. I just choose the color and that's fit. But again, it's not about me. So.
Oh, it is. It's all about you.
But again, we're still in a little bit different industry and not dresses. Well, usually we are trying to. We like innovation, and we are trying to be an innovative company. So we are seeking constantly for new technologies, and we are trying them. We are contacting the company. We are taking development kit. We are trying to study and design a product which is not for mass production, but for development purposes. And if we see a real advantage coming out of it, you need to take into consideration how much it will cost you to develop, how much it will cost you from bill of material point of view. So will it be cost effective? Will you be able to sell it? Will you be able to find the right price for it, which will leave you with a nice margin? So there are a lot of things to take into consideration. Sometimes we jump into the pool, you know, and try it, and sometimes we say, okay, we will wait for our competitors to see what they are doing before we are taking the next step. So I think with this specific technology, digital signage probably will be the first thing that will use it, because for corporates or you know, even for entertainment, it's an option, but I can't see anything else coming out of it unless you want to send your kid with you know, with the frozen film on his belly or something.
Oh, that would be not distracting at all in the classroom. So
teachers will have to deal with new things. They thought that cellular phone are annoying, so let's see them deal with the sweater coming with an LCD on it.
Yeah. All right, we'll take it a little bit to the residential side, and you know, so it's fabric, right? So Joe, we'll kick this to you. curtains, shades, things of this nature. You can have not only digital signage, but you could have, a situation where, I don't know, American football is coming up, so you could have shades that has one game on and another shade that has another game on. Is this something that's interesting? Are you watching this, or is this still too experimental?
I don't think it's too experimental, because you can look at this as kind of the same spot of the beginnings of when everybody got into the LED lighting, and then Phillips came out with the Hue, and it was kind of gimmicky. And now you're starting to see that it's huge in the commercial space, but it just kind of got its foothold in the residential space. This application is going to be one of those things, because you're going to most likely see, I've heard, some interesting things come out of this. You're going to see wall plates that are actually backlit with that thread. Them using that kind of LED to actually create a really slim backlight. For it to be a display, I think it's going to be far off to be any kind of display that would be residentially accepted, where we're already told that our 1080p is no longer good enough. We need 4K. I'd like to see them try to weave a 4K TV. I'm just saying. It's going to be a lot different. I think it'll never jump that far in residential, because OLED will be the way to go. But it's too early to tell. Who knows what they're going to do with it? It might just be a nice T-shirt you get at a trade show that lights up the logo. Who knows? It's way too early in the game to even assume what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to pick on Mr. Andry for a second, because he has a really cool T-shirt. If you're watching the video, he has Groot. All right. And
Starry Night Groot.
It's Starry Night Groot. So not only does he have Groot, but it's also, a Van Gogh-ish Groot. So imagine that's an LED, Tom, and it's Groot walking into the Starry Night. I don't know. Is this interesting, or is it kitschy still?
I honestly don't see them like that. That's going to happen. I see, them maybe being able to make this shirt light up. That's in certain spots and that sort of thing. Or as Keren said, which I didn't think about it, but what she said was really cool. Like being able to change the color. Maybe it's got 2 or 3 different colors that you can switch to. I don't see it being as programmable as an actual display. The first thing I thought was, I am finally going to be able to dress up like Tron. Right? I'm going to get the Tron thing going on. That's the first thing I thought. And the second thing I thought is, how are you supposed to wash this and not have it disintegrate or break or
short out?
There's certainly a lot of technological things that they have to explain to me before this happens. But and ironing it too, like no starch. It's very, very interesting. For example, my son, the school he's going to, they have a dress code. It's not a very strict one. It just says, shorts and stuff that are a certain length and don't have holes in them, but the shirts all have to have no real logos, no words or anything on there. They have to be just sort of plain. Like this would be a great option where you're at school, your shirt is plain, and then you switch it on, and it displays like the Frozen logo or the Frozen, as Keren was saying, or this maybe. But it gives you some options in your clothes. Kitschy, yeah. At least for now, I don't really see a huge integration. But as you were saying with curtains, I thought this would be great in home theater. You have either you can darken them, so you go from having clear curtains that like light in and everything else into a home theater, and then you can press a button and they black out, and it's blackout drapes, or they glow, so you're no longer worrying about sconces and lights and stuff like that. You're like, oh, my curtains glow, and then you can see all the dust on them and stuff. But whatever, it'll be fine. So, it's got some interesting possible applications. It still feels really early to me. As Joe said, it didn't take that long for these Phillips Hue lights and these other things to come around. So I expect about 5 years we'll know whether or not this is going to be something that's going to be real, or if it's just going to be another, thing that happened and we forgot about it.
You brought up something though. Does anybody still do those star fields in home theaters?
I hope not.
You could just use this and have all kind of starry night up on your ceiling in your theater.
See, I like the star fields. I think that's cool.
I haven't done one in probably, 10 years, but they were cool in like 93.
Big in '93. Let's bring '93 back. That was a fantastic year.
It wasn't a bad year. It was,
It was a good year. It was a good year.
I was 19. It was, having fun.
Fujitsu was popular then too.
What was it?
Fujitsu?
Oh, geez. Never mind. Don't bring
Come on,
back.
the $10,000 50-inch.
No, don't bring back 93. Maybe 94. All right. From John Siaka and residentialsystems.com. How to market your business like a pro. Specifically, he's talking about CI business, but we're going to talk about it in general. He's got a quote on here, which I absolutely love. Doing business, this is from Stuart Henderson Britt. Doing business without advertising is like winking at a girl in the dark. You know what you're doing, but nobody else does. I've never winked at a girl in the dark, but I get the sentiment. Joe, we'll start with you on this. To John's point, how exactly are you supposed to market when it comes to talking directly to the customer, regardless of who that customer is?
It's kind of funny that on the residential space, it has changed so much, just the landscape. So a lot of other companies have started doing the work for us. You mentioned some of them earlier: Nest, Phillips, GE, Samsung. They're starting to do the work with us on the technology side, and they have pretty much the best outward-facing appearance to consumers and our potential clients, which kind of makes it. A lot of integrators don't realize that the template is already built for you if you go out there and seize it. And in our market, we have to change that every 1 to 2 years. We really have to reevaluate the way that we look to the outward-facing consumer, the way they look at us. I'm in the middle of a website design myself right now, because you look at Sonos's website, Nest website, and you look at websites 5 years ago, how it has changed for the outward-facing portion, being able to integrate social media in there. And now there's some really hot things that we're toying with, like S-Commerce. S-Commerce is great. Say I have a special within my shop on Sonos or Sony 4K TVs or whatever, and that actually goes out on LinkedIn and on Twitter as a post with a buy now button built right onto the tweet. So I'm looking at my Twitter feed. Oh, wow, $500 off a Sony 4K TV. Buy now, sure. Boom, press the buy now button. You're now at the shopping page and in checkout. So, being able to keep up is the hardest things for integrators, because even though we're technology guys, we're not teenagers. We're kind of behind the times on the way things are supposed to look, but all these companies have already built it for us. Any integrator, all they have to do is look at the way Sonos is doing their business and marketing, look at Nest, look at those guys, and there's a template already built that is acceptable. And that reevaluation, I cannot stress how important that is right now. I know have you guys seen the new marketing literature coming out from Cedia for Expo this year in Dallas?
I've seen some of it, yeah.
Yeah, so it looks a little different, it feels a little different. That's kind of one of those reevaluation things. You kind of look, he's got one right there. See, it's a reevaluation, something different, something, and
looks very minimalistic.
Yeah, that second one kind of looked like
puts that on integration companies as well. You've got to reevaluate. You've got to change with the market.
All right, Mr. Andry, how do we talk to whether it's talking to you specifically or talking to the people who are trying to put in home theaters or do it themselves?
So this particular post, the 6 ways of whatever. First of all, it's really kind of 5 ways. There's 5 ways, and the 6th one is, if we're your marketing firm, please don't fire us. We're trying. And the 5th one is, don't forget snail mail, which kind of makes sense if you're in a local market and you're trying to market. Around here, most of the marketing comes from just literally signs on the vans that have the wraps on them with all the names and stuff like that. And I think that Joe makes a good point. A lot of these companies are already doing a lot of the work for you. Customers know about Nest. They know about some of these lighting solutions and that sort of stuff. So just putting those things on the side of your van while your guys are driving around, they are seeing that. They go, oh yeah, I know what that is. These guys install it. Okay, I've been thinking about that. Maybe I'll give them a call and see what they have to say. The rest of this, it really kind of the whole article kind of felt out of touch to me, because this is not marketing specifically for custom installers. This is just 101 marketing. If you go, because I've written five books now, 6 books. Oh my, 6? I don't know. Anyways, I self-published 3 of them. And when you self-publish, you have to market yourself, obviously. And this is exactly the same marketing stuff, aside from the snail mail, that they will talk about constantly with book sales. Like, you need to get a newsletter list. You can keep a website up, keep it fresh, keep it, hey, I'm sorry, people really don't read blogs that much anymore. It's just kind of passe, but that's what this thing is saying. Really, what Joe is saying makes a little bit more sense. It's all about, I think, businesses. It's all about Twitter. It's all about, just a couple times a day. Facebook is good too. It's still relevant, I think. A couple times a day, making sure that there's something that's going through. And if you have a deal or something like that, making sure your customers know about it. But frankly, word of mouth, especially in a local area, is king. There is nothing better than doing a good job. And once that starts getting around, letting people know that you install the sort of things that they're interested in and that they've heard of from these other companies, even if it's just the speakers, name brand speakers, is something that will draw their attention and get you at least into a telephone conversation. And from there, it's all on you to make sure that you impress them enough to hire you and to think that you are good value.
Well, and I would also take that small community thing a little bit further. You mentioned making sure that advertising and word of mouth is important in your local community. I would also say that word of mouth and customer testimonials are important in small little niche communities as well, right? There are a handful of folks who are technology managers, or a handful of folks who are CTOs and CIOs. They talk to each other, whether that's they read the same things, they watch the same podcasts, they watch the same news programs, and they do indeed, learn from each other. So if you do a good job with one CTO, good chance that one will at least, mention you. The opposite is true as well. If you do a bad job, and I want to say that the metrics on this is like, if you do a good job, one client will tell, 1 or 2 people. You do a bad job, that one person is going to tell 10 to 15 people. And that's true whether it's commercial integration or it's restaurants or whatever it is. That kind of holds true throughout that. So, yeah. All right, Miss Keren, you've got the last word on this. As from a manufacturing standpoint, how do you market?
Well, in a world where you don't congratulate your friends, you write on their wall, you don't talk with them, you text them, and you don't tell them things, you just send them a link to your Google photo album. I think we still are missing the human touch. People, we are human in the end, and we like the human touch, and I think that if you get closer to people, you get to know them, and face to face personally, they will think of you first when they need something. So I still believe in doing things face to face. For example, you can host a small event, a little bit of beer afternoon with some snacks, bringing something. I don't know if you're selling TVs, so if it's a football night, just host a football night. Using your own displays with some beer and something, and people will remember you are selling TVs. And if you will teach them something, they will remember your a knowledge base. And I think that they will remember you better than your flyer or your post on the internet. So if I believe in keeping in touch with people.
That's a very good point too.
I'd like to add one little final thing. So it should be like a challenge to all the AVNation watchers out there. This article, we were talking about 1993. This is the way you would market in 1993. So everything has changed. I really challenge everybody to really reevaluate the way that their outreach is. We all know word of mouth is best. I'm going to just experiment with some weird things, and I'm just going to, my business card is not going to have my name on it anymore. It's just going to say, follow me on Twitter at, there it is. And there's all the information right on their fingertips. These things are changing so much with, like I was talking about, S-commerce, and then there's a lot of marketing strategies. These are in everybody's hands all the time now, and they're not being utilized for marketing in the commercial or residential space. And we really need to, just like it was said, that personal touch, the personal touch for our generation has changed. You know, the face-to-face is important, and that's how you close a deal, but you have to be able to get in there first. And if 50% of the time this is in my hand, I need to figure out a way to get into your phone, not in a creepy way, just kind of get into your phone and actually be able to push this content to you so that you have it all day. So I really want to challenge all the watchers at AVNation to, not to quote Jeremy Burkhart, but, you know, be different, be better, or be first. Get in that be different, because in most of our big the markets for commercial and residential, you most likely have 14 to 20 competitors. What makes you different in your region?
Yeah.
And that's really what's going to start selling is people are looking for different now. That's why they go watch cat videos on YouTube. They want different. So, I mean, we've got to start thinking of it that way, as people they're digesting content differently now than when any of us right here started our companies, you know, and started business. Things are a lot different now.
Well, you could do worse than quoting Mr. Burkhart. So, you know, he's a pretty smart guy.
He's a good friend of mine. So, I had to throw it in there because that's one of those mantras that I really believe is it's kind of important right now as the industry changes.
Yeah.
To build on what Keren said too, I was at a restaurant waiting for my wife to get there. Her and the kids were riding the bikes, and I drove because exercise.
Now,
So
just
I'm
for the
sitting
record,
outside
if you're
this
not, hang on,
restaurant.
if you're not watching this, Tom is like 120 pounds soaking wet. I'm like 450. So, you know, yeah.
So I'm sitting outside this restaurant waiting, and there's a custom installed place. I see these vans all over the place, like Bob's Install. I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, so it's down. It's just a couple businesses down. So I pop in there. I want to see what he's selling. I want to, you know, maybe get some demos, you know. And there's something to be said for the personal touch, yes, but also the excitement. Like, you never really know who that person is that's walking in. And I always look like this. This is what I look like all the time. You can look at me and go, that's an AV guy right there. Now, you maybe a movie buff, but not an AV guy. So I walk in and I'm just like kind of asking around and stuff like that. And the guy would answer my questions, sort of, but that was about it. And I've thought, you know, I would like to geek out right now, and you are totally geek blocking me. So let's, you know, can we in some way, you know, get excited about what you do, and let's really talk about it? Because even if I'm not going to buy something, I mean, what else are you going to do? We're literally sitting behind the counter right now looking at your phone. We could be talking about all this fun gear in here. So to build on what Keren said, there's that personal touch. And I think that personal touch comes through not only face-to-face, but it also comes through in your internet posts, in your tweets, and everything else about how, you know, getting that excitement out there that you are excited about what you do and about doing it for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Because here's the thing. I mean, I've said this to the folks who work for me. I've said it to, you know, pretty much anybody that listens. This is not rocket science, right? This is not brain surgery. No one's going to die, but it's freaking exciting. It's a great industry to be in. It's a very exciting industry to be in. And holy cow, you know, whether it's new products or meeting new people and connecting with them. I mean, Joe mentioned Jeremy Burkhart, one of the most exciting people that I've ever had the chance to meet, just in general, right? And he's very excited. He's very passionate about what he does, and, you know, not only his products, but also, you know, the science behind it and developing new things. So yeah, I mean, Tom's right. You've got to get excited. And you have to. If you're not excited, if you don't wake up every morning excited to go to work, go do something else. Seriously, I mean, go, you know, be an accountant or something. I don't know. All right.
That's exciting.
Because that's, well, it is to some people. Numbers excite some people, you know.
It's very, very boring.
Bernanke, I don't know. All right. Joe Whitaker, thanks so much for joining us, sir. Joe Whitaker Designs. And he's a brand spanking new 40 under 40 from Commercial Integrator. So
that was exciting. I'm so that was a surprise and a shock because the names on that list, if you guys have looked at those names, those are all amazing people.
Yep. Yeah, it's a really great list. How can people get a hold of you? You mentioned that you're not going to do your name. So what is your Twitter handle?
It's just Joe_Tech_Guru. Easiest in the world.
Joe Tech Guru. All right, sir. Thanks so much. Also, and if you want to hang out with Joe, go to CEDIA Expo this year. It's in Dallas, so he'll be there hanging out with the CEDIA folks. Also with us is Mr. Tom Andry from the AV Rant podcast. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
How do people get a hold of you and or follow your podcast?
Okay, well, the podcast is the website is www.avrant.com. My Twitter handle is at avrant_Tom. And to get your question answered on our podcast, which we answer just about everything AV and home theater related. In fact, if you want to ask me for a recipe, I'll answer that too. I don't really care. But you can send us questions just question or questions at avrant.com. If you want to send one to me directly, it's Tom at avrant.com, and my co-host is Rob, and you can email him as well at rob@avrant.com. You get it to one of those, and we will put the question into the queue, and it will come up, and we will answer it. Our podcasts go every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We usually podcast for about 2 hours, and then afterwards we have a hangout, which usually starts around 11 p.m. And anybody who's still around at that point can pop in and hang out with us, and we will answer your questions at that point.
And also, you mentioned the books. You are an author as well, so how do people get a hold of those?
I am. You can go to www.tomandry.com and see my books. They're all about a private eye who lives in the world of superheroes or super-powered beings. He does not have superpowers, but he investigates them and generally is a jerk. So kind of me, but without the people to harass.
And without the Groot shirt, so.
That's true. He doesn't have a Groot shirt because he's not that cool.
All right. Last but not least, Keren Lipshitz from Kramer. Thank you, ma'am, for staying late at work for us.
Thank you.
And how do people either get a hold of you or find Kramer?
You can always enter to Kramer website. It's kramerelectronics.com. We are selling in 85 countries, so you probably can find a distributor or our office around you. And you can find me in my LinkedIn, Keren Lipshitz, and I will be happy to answer any of your questions.
All right, very good. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me, but go by the website if you would, please, AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. We have programs from education and tech managers to looking at programming and automation to lights to social media. Joe mentioned the S marketing, all sorts of stuff. You'll also find a list of underwriters there. These are the folks that help us do what we do. Kramer is one of those as well, so check that out if you would, please. AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been AV Week.